Hi everyone, Michael Shorts here, bringing you another Doctor Who 5-inch scale action figure review, and in this review we're going to be taking a look at one of the latest additions to Character's Doctor Who 5-inch scale figure line, and this is the 13th Doctor figure, as seen in Series 11. Now I got this figure towards the end of last year from Character Online for $12.99, and before I go any further into this video, I just wanted to apologise for my lack of videos of late. Unfortunately, coming out of Christmas towards the end of last year, I came down with what was one of the worst colds I'd had in ages, and for quite a while I just wasn't in a great state to be making videos because my voice was constantly fading in and out of existence, and it just wasn't really all that fun at all. So I'm pleased to say that that is now a thing of the past, and given that I'm now doing a Doctor Who action figure review, I thought now would be a good time to show off some of my Doctor Who action figure shelves that I've been working on recently. As some of you may know, a few years ago I got some glass cabinets specifically for my action figure collections, and recently I've been gradually taking some of my Doctor Who action figures out of storage and placing them onto these shelves. And this week I've been working on the Matt Smith and David Tennant era displays, which have become very crowded very quickly, more so on the Matt Smith era displays. And quite frankly, it is going to be a big struggle to fit every single figure onto these shelves, and I've got no doubt there will probably be a few that unfortunately I'll have to keep in the boxes rather than on the shelves. But I am really pleased with how they've turned out so far, and I just wanted to show you some pictures of these shelves because I don't often do videos of my collection displays, but I will continue to update you on them in my future Doctor Who action figure reviews and probably some separate videos as well. So taking a look at the packaging now, we can see that this figure isn't part of the 5.5-inch scale collector series, as the packaging is a lot more designed to promote the new series of the show. It's not featuring the classic Doctor Who logos and the other sort of designs and colour schemes that we've seen with the collector series figures over the past few years. So at the top we've got the brand new Doctor Who logo. Below that we have the figure in a clear plastic bubble with the sonic screwdriver accessory. On the left hand side we get a nice picture of the new TARDIS, and on the right hand side of the plastic bubble we get a quite nice part of the design whereby one of the TARDIS doors is just opening up next to the figure there. At the bottom we get the name of the figure and also some Gallifreyan text in the background, not quite sure what that says. And at the bottom we get some product and company information. And then taking a look at the back, we get a brief sort of bio or synopsis about the 13th Doctor and her adventures. Below that we get a picture of the 10-inch scale 13th Doctor figure along with the electronic sonic screwdriver. On the left hand side we get the picture of the TARDIS again, and then at the bottom we get the same usual product and company information. And that's it for the packaging, and now we're going to take a closer look at the figure. Okay, so here we have the brand new 13th Doctor figure. Now, even though I didn't enjoy Series 11 as much as some of the previous seasons of New Who, I was still really happy that we were getting a figure of Jodie Whittaker as the 13th Doctor in the 5-inch scale, because even though the 5-inch scale line isn't how it used to be when it was all over the shelves of local stores and Toys R Us had a massive display of figures and other merchandise from Character from the show, it's really nice that Character still have the fans and the collectors in mind, and they are giving us new releases for this line, even if it is just a handful every year really. So this particular figure, as far as I can tell, is all new. I don't think it reuses any parts from any previous 5-inch scale figures whatsoever. So as usual, we'll start off by taking a look at the head sculpt, and I have to say I think this does have a pretty good likeness to Jodie Whittaker. However, there is something about it that's just letting it down slightly to me. It just doesn't quite look as good as the head sculpt on the 10-inch version of this figure, and I know you could say it's a smaller scale, of course it's not going to look quite as good, but we've had 5-inch figures from the Doctor Who line in the past that have looked exactly like the actors they're based on, and with this one there's just something that isn't perhaps making it quite as good as it should be. I think if the eyebrows were a little bit more subtle, perhaps a little bit more lightly painted, the head sculpt would look a bit better. I'm not sure if it's anything to do with the eyes, but there's just something in the paintwork that is letting it down slightly for me. But still, you can tell that the likeness to Jodie Whittaker is there in the sculpt. No doubt that they've used the new scanning technology that a lot of action figure companies use for making figures of actors and actresses from live action TV shows and films. We know that Character did use this technology for the very first 11th Doctor figures back in 2010. And as far as the rest of the head sculpt goes, the hair is pretty nice. I love the way it's been sculpted. The paint on it, I think, could be a little bit better on the top there. I wish the darker parts would fade into the lighter parts a bit more, as there is sort of a very distinctive cut, for lack of a better word, between the dark parts and the light parts there, and I think if they were a little bit more subtle it would look a little bit more natural and realistic. But for the most part, the paintwork is really nice on the facial features. They've been done really well. There is a tiny dot of paint that shouldn't be there near one of the eyes, but I'm not going to let that affect my overall view of this figure. And you can see that she has got the earrings on her left ear there, which have been painted really well. The costume is exactly the same as it is on the 10-inch 13th Doctor figure. It's just that the clothes are made mostly out of plastic and other materials rather than fabric this time. I think Character have captured the costume for this particular version really nicely. It's a costume that isn't exactly full of intricate patterns or design details, so it is quite a easy one to capture in a smaller scale like this when it comes to the painted and sculpted detail. The coat is a fairly light bluey grey, and you can see that some parts, like the bottom, have been given a very dark blue stripe, and there's also a couple of stripes along her sleeves there, and the pockets have also been painted with the same type of paint as well. You also get a few creases, especially around the elbows there, and I really like these little stripes of colour that you can see going down the lapels. Then taking a closer look at the shirt, I'm really pleased to see that the paintwork on this has turned out really well, especially after I had a lot of problems with the Bill Potts figure from the Collector series that came out last year. On the parts of the shirt on that figure that had a lot of stripes and colourful areas, there was some pretty noticeable paint errors, but I'm pleased to say that on this one that isn't the case. So over the middle of the shirt we get a few coloured bands, and below that we get the braces, which are sculpted, they're not just painted, and you can see that they've been done with black and yellow. You also get some creases just above the waist there. Their trousers are a very light blue, not really much to say about them really in terms of detail, other than they have got a lot of creases around the top and going down towards the knees. The boots have been painted really nicely as well. The paint really complements the sculpted detail of the laces. There's a lot of dark brown, but there's also a lot of light brown on the laces and a lot of other random areas, making them look quite worn and dirty in some areas. The socks are also part of the sculpt just above the boots, and they have been done really nicely as well. They're not just solid blue lines like I thought they were at first. If you take a closer look at them, you can actually see some sculpted detail of the material there. Now, my only major problem with the sculpt on this figure is the right hand. It's basically sculpted with a fully clenched fist, which means that the sonic screwdriver accessory can be held by the right hand really nicely and securely, so it probably won't be lost if you drop the figure with the sonic screwdriver in her hand. But I really would have liked this a bit more if there was a gap between the one of the fingers and the thumb, so that you could have the sonic screwdriver held not only just like this, sort of like a candlelight, but also pointed directly forwards, as that was something you were able to do with the 11th Doctor figures, where you could either have him just holding the sonic screwdriver like I've got this 13th Doctor figure holding it now, and then you could have it posed with him pointing the end of the sonic screwdriver directly forwards. So unfortunately that isn't possible with this figure, and I know some people probably won't be bothered by that, but to me I would much prefer having the sonic screwdriver posed the other way rather than just this way. Okay, so moving on to the articulation. Now, Something I really like about this figure is that it utilises a new kind of head and neck articulation that we've never seen with a Doctor figure from character before. This particular figure, unlike others which have had a single cut joint in the neck, has got a ball joint on the neck. So not only can you turn the head from side to side and probably all the way around like you can on a lot of other Doctor figures, but you can also move the head up and down and tilt it to the sides. And I think this is an absolutely brilliant point of articulation, and something which I don't think I've really ever said much in my Doctor Who action figure reviews in the past is that before I started collecting Doctor Who action figures, I was already collecting loads of action figures from other lines like Transformers, Marvel, and there were so many characters that had this kind of articulation. And I always thought when I first started collecting the Doctor Who action figures that they should have articulation like this, because the figures seemed totally suitable and big enough to have this kind of articulation. And it's really good to see that they finally brought this type of articulation to the Doctor Who 5-inch scale action figure line. And to be honest, I never really said that I wish these figures had it when I was doing my previous reviews, because it was just something that I came used to these figures not having, and in a way I could see why they didn't do it. But I do think this is really, really good. I much prefer it to the bog standard neck swivel joint, because you just cannot get any up and down movement with that whatsoever. So it definitely gives you a lot more posing options with the figure. You know, you can't have the figure looking very far down, but definitely just having that ability to move the head upwards a little bit and face in some different directions or tilt the head. I think that's absolutely fantastic, and I hope that they continue to bring this feature to other figures we get in the 5-inch line. And if they go back and redo figures of past Doctors, then please, character, give us that new type of articulation, because it's simple but it's really, really effective. And then moving down to the arms, they have a swivel joint at the shoulders where they can go all the way around. The arms also have the usual bicep swivel joint, the joint where they can move up and down at the elbow, and wrist swivel joints as well. Sadly, unlike many of the other new Doctor Who figures we've seen over the past few years, this figure does not have ball jointed shoulders, which I think is a real shame. And to be honest, given that we've got the new head articulation of this figure, I'm very surprised to see that they haven't included the ball jointed shoulders as well, because a few years ago that was a new type of articulation for the Doctor Who 5-inch figure line as well. So bit of a shame there. Great to have some new head articulation, but I really would have liked this figure a lot more if it had the ball jointed shoulders as well. I can't really see why it wouldn't be possible for this particular figure really, so I hope for future releases they are able to utilise them. So just above the waist, she also has a swivel joint, although the coat does limit the movement a bit. The legs can also go backwards and forwards from the hips. She has a joint at the knees where the legs can go up and down. And unfortunately, much to my surprise as well, the boots don't have swivel joints, which is something I'd come to expect from a figure like this. To be honest, I'm not overly fussed about that. It's just something that I would have thought we would have got with this figure, but we just haven't. So for the articulation, I think this figure is pretty good. Again, really pleased with that new bit of head articulation. It's just somewhat limited compared to the articulation of some of the other newer Doctor Who action figures in the past. It's by no means bad at all. It's still a lot better than some of the very original Doctor Who action figures we got way back in 2006. It's just a bit less than what I was expecting in some areas like the arms and the legs. So before I give my final thoughts on this figure, we're just going to take a quick look at the sonic screwdriver accessory. Now, even though this isn't my favourite new series sonic screwdriver, I have to say I think Character have done this really well, considering it is such a small and intricately detailed piece. You can see it's got the sculpted details of some buttons, and the paintwork on it has turned out really nicely as well, with the yellow and orange parts and the silver. There have been sonic screwdriver accessories in the past where, even though there should be multiple colours, they have just been painted with one solid colour. So I think it is really nice that Character have given us the silver as well as the yellow parts, rather than just painting it all silver. So from me, the Sonic screwdriver gets a very well earned 5 out of 5. Nice little accessory. Again, don't like it as much as some of the other new series Sonic screwdrivers, but I'm not here to bash the source material, and it has turned out really well. Okay, so overall, I think the 5-inch scale 13th Doctor figure is a pretty good addition to my Doctor Who action figure collection. I really like this figure in terms of the sculpting. I think the likeness to Jodie Whittaker is definitely there in that head sculpt. It's just something about the paintwork isn't making it quite as good as it perhaps could be. That being said, I think the costume has turned out great. I haven't really got any problems with that at all. The paintwork on it is really nice, and it's got all the sculpted detail that I think it needs, really. And the articulation is pretty good as well. Again, I'm really pleased to see that character have utilised that new type of head articulation. It's just, I think the articulation for the rest of the figure lets it down a little bit, even though it is still a lot more articulated than some of the very original Doctor Who action figures that character gave us. And from me, the 5-inch scale 13th Doctor figure gets a very well earned 8 out of 10. Even though I have my problems with this figure, I'd still definitely recommend it to you if you are a big fan of Jodie Whittaker as the 13th Doctor. And if you are someone that only gets a select few of the 5-inch scale figures rather than all of them, I'd say you should definitely get this one, as it is by no means a bad figure, and it goes quite nicely with the existing Doctor figures that we already have. So yeah, that is pretty much it for my review of the 5-inch scale 13th Doctor figure. Hope you've all enjoyed watching this review. If you want to share your thoughts on this figure, you can do so in the comment section below. I'm not sure what my next Doctor Who action figure review is going to be of yet. I really hope it will be of one of the brand new B&M exclusive figure sets, but they have proven to be really hard to find for me so far. In fact, I didn't have any luck in finding last year's sets at all, which I think is the first time that's ever happened with any of the B&M exclusive sets for me. So hopefully if I get them in the near future, I'll give you a review of them very soon after I get them. So yeah, thanks for watching this review, guys, and I will see you again soon.